Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast presented by Full Press Coverage. Sap, you like to bring things to my attention every now and then. I can't be everywhere at once. I like to be caught up on, the news and what's going on in the world, and that includes sports. But sometimes things escape my vision, my periphery, if you will. And you brought this to my attention, which is pretty interesting. Gary Payton, who's never been shy to say anything, has made some comments about Hakeem Olajuwon being way better than Shaquille O'Neal. Now, that obviously rankled a lot of people because Shaq is a former Laker. Whenever you say anything somewhat detrimental about anybody on the Lakers, the social media swarms come out, and Shaq happens to be one of the most popular players of all time. Sap, I know that you have Hakeem Olajuwon ranked over Shaquille O'Neal, but would you dare to say that he was way better than Shaq?
Hell no. No, that's not accurate at all. I mean, look, in my power ranking of centers, I'll get this out of the way because I do like lists. The top three are Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Wilt Chamberlain, in that order. Right? They're the third, fourth, and fifth greatest players of all time, in my opinion. Now, the next level of centers in order: Moses Malone, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Shaq. And I have Moses is the 13th greatest player ever. Hakeem is the 14th greatest player ever. And Shaq is the 15th greatest player ever. So kind of like my top tier, they're back to back to back. So I have Shaq is the sixth greatest center, but you can make a case that he's the fourth greatest center because to me, Moses, Hakeem, and Shaq are right there. No, no one's way better than Shaq. Not even Russell, Chamberlain, and Jabbar. I mean, the guy was for 4 years the most unstoppable force probably since Wilt Chamberlain, right? I mean, he won back to back to back championships. He was the finals MVP in all three of those finals. For that period of time, the man was unguardable. I mean, let's not forget, he beat the San Antonio Spurs in the postseason several times. He essentially toyed with Tim Duncan and David Robinson, two all-time greats. He ragdolled those guys. No, there's no way in hell that anyone is way better than Shaquille O'Neal. Now, I think Shaquille O'Neal underachieved in his career. I think he could have been a better rebounder. I think if he took conditioning more seriously, he would have had a longer, more productive career. I think he could have worked on his free throw shooting somewhat to be, awful at it instead of really awful at it. But no, I don't agree with Gary Payton. I agree that Hakeem's better, but not way better. Hell no.
Yeah, I think that those guys are pretty interchangeable if you're talking about Moses Malone, Shaq, and Hakeem Olajuwon in terms of where you want to rank them. And then the tier right after that, I'd say, is David Robinson, Patrick Ewing. I think that Shaq at the height of his powers, you could make a case was as great of a center as there's ever been. At the absolute height of his powers, I think that is a legitimate case to make. I do think I agree with you that Shaq had so many physical gifts that it's almost kind of shocking that he didn't win more MVPs, win more final NBA championships. I know he has 4 of them, which is a lot, but considering how gifted he was, it is kind of surprising that he didn't win even more than that. Hakeem was just more obviously took conditioning far more seriously, and I think got more out of what he had than what Shaq did. I think Shaq was more gifted than Hakeem, and I think Hakeem's one of the most gifted players to ever play basketball. So that's saying something. But yeah, I mean, Gary Payton obviously is saying something, I think, to get back in headlines and to have his voice heard, because that's sort of what you do. And it's working. Clearly, we're talking about it. But to say anybody, I agree with you, anybody was way better than Shaq, I think that's kind of ridiculous.
Olajuwon was more aesthetically pleasing to watch than Shaq. Like, Shaq was a bull in a china shop. Like, he would go in the low post and just bludgeon people. Now, he was agile for a man that size, 7'1", 325 pounds. I mean, he was the biggest, strongest guy in the league, but he was agile. He had great footwork. Olajuwon was an artist on the court. His athleticism was through the roof. I mean, he was a soccer goalie growing up. You just think of the athletic ability you have to play that position. So he was an artist on the court, whereas Shaq, it was just like pure power. Moses Malone was an effort guy. Like he just outworked everybody. I would equate Moses Malone to like the Bruce Springsteen of basketball. Like he just go out there and sweat for 3 hours and just work his ass off and just want it more than you. I know for a fact that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar hated playing against Moses Malone. Moses Malone beat him twice in the playoffs, once in the finals with Philadelphia and once in the miniseries back in 1981. Kareem hated playing against Moses Malone. Wasn't crazy about playing against Bill Walton. The crazy thing about Kareem is he's played against like every center that ever played,
Right.
because he's kind of like Tom Brady. Tom Brady's played against every team, every quarterback, every coach, because they've been around forever. I mean, Kareem came up and actually played against Will Chamberlain, and then there was Wes Unseld and Willis Reed and Dave Cowens and Bob Lanier, and then he played the next group of great centers. Like he played against everybody, so he'd actually be the perfect guy to ask this question to, because he played against all these guys. And I'm sure that even though Shaq is a Laker, that Kareem would probably favor Olajuwon, because like Kareem, he was an artist on the court. There was gracefulness to their games, where with Shaq it was just pure power. So interesting comments from Gary Payton, and it's kind of interesting because he did win a championship with Shaq in Miami. Now we know Dwayne Wade was the best player on that team, but Payton was a contributor. Shaq obviously a big contributor to that championship team, and Antoine Walker may have been the third best player on that Miami
Yeah.
championship team in 2006. So those guys, but they have to also respect Dwayne Wade and Shaq as being the top two players on that team. So it's kind of interesting that Peyton is kind of dissing a guy that he won a championship with. Again, I don't know what their relationship is. Maybe they had a falling out, and this is his way of getting back at Shaq. We see this in the NFL. Like Jermichael Finley, who played tight end with Aaron Rodgers for 5 years,
Yeah.
is constantly on everyone's podcast on NFL Network just shitting on Aaron Rodgers. It's like we all forgot about Jermichael Finley, and like every 2 months he comes on to shit on Aaron Rodgers, and it kind of makes him relevant, I guess, because he's a former teammate that disses the quarterback. Gary Payton's a lot better than Jermichael Finley, and I don't agree with Gary Payton in his comments that Hakeem is way better than Shaq. I think Hakeem is better than Shaq, but not by much.
Yeah, I think you could totally go either way with it and make a legitimate case. Again, I think the only thing that you could say that's pretty definitive is when Shaq was at his peak, he was better than Hakeem at his peak.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Yep.
Which I mean, they were both outstanding at their peak. Obviously, each of them won multiple MVPs and multiple titles. Dozen plus All NBA for both of them. You can go on and on and on with their their accomplishments in their career. You can't really go wrong with either one of them. Hakeem won 2 titles. Those 2 were when Jordan was out of the league. Shaq obviously never won a championship when Jordan was, at the height of his powers with the Bulls. Jordan was on the Wizards when Shaq won a couple championships. So, you could say, all right, well, if Shaq had played in his whole career against Jordan, would he have won any MVPs or championships? If Hakeem had played when, the same time Shaq had played and Jordan was out of the league, would he have won more? Those are I think fair questions and debates, which it kind of always does come back to Michael Jordan, and he was like the specter around the NBA. Is that a lot of people were blocked from accomplishing more because of him, and right after he retired, there was sort of this vacuum that the Lakers and Spurs were able to sort of suck up and win a couple of titles each. So yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting debate. There's clearly no reason to say that one player was way better than the other, because that's just patently untrue. But Gary Payton does get us to have some conversation here. But we're not done talking about Shaq Sapp, as he was on a podcast and he had an interesting quote to say. He was on the Big Shot Bob podcast. I'm assuming that's Robert Ory's podcast.
Sounds right.
And he had this to say, quote, "Players today have no pride and just join the team they lose to." Again, Shaq is not shy about dissing sort of this modern generation of player mobility and player super teams. I tend to agree with Shaq's point of view, though I do feel like he's not necessarily the best spokesperson for this. He did play on a lot of different teams. He did play with Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade, and at the end of his career, he played with a couple of other Hall of Famers, Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. But
And Ray Allen. Don't
and
forget Ray Allen. I know you like to, but don't forget him too.
Was Ray Allen on the Celtics when Shaq was on the Celtics?
I think so. I think he came in 2012.
11.
Yeah, so he played in the 11-12 season. I think that, yeah, Ray Allen was there for that, I believe. I'd have to check that. Rondo was there as well. So yeah, don't forget Ray Allen. You
Okay.
Celtic Nation people always like to forget Ray Allen because he left too. But
I was doing it not because he's not a Hall of Famer, but because I didn't think he was on the team at the time. But I may be wrong. I may be wrong.
I
but
forgive you.
So again, I agree that I do think that there is a propensity, which is a good word, Sep, for players to join teams that they either lose to or think gives them the best chance of to run roughshod through the league and win a championship. But I don't think Shaq is necessarily the best spokesperson for this.
No, neither is Charles Barkley when he bloviates about this, right? Because Barkley forced his way out of Philadelphia, went to a pretty good Phoenix team, got to the finals, and then worked his way out of Phoenix and ended up going to Houston with who? Olajuwon and Pippen. Is that not a big three, a stacked team? I mean, they were all past their prime at that point, but they tried to pull it off. Look, Shaq signed as a free agent with the Lakers, which is the ultimate in going to chase gold, right? You go with the purple and gold, like every other huge free agent in the history of the league tends to go to the Lakers at some point, right? Whether it's Shaq, whether it's obviously LeBron James recently. So yeah, I mean, he's not the best messenger. I mean, I guess you could say, do as I don't do as I say, don't do as I do, or whatever. I'm probably screwing everything up. Do as I say, not as I do. Like he's telling you that he doesn't like the fact that teams, get together and build these super teams, but he was ready, willing, and able to do that. Where did he go at the end of his career? To the Celtics, because he thought he had a chance to win another championship. That's happened in this league forever. Like old guys joined the Celtics in the 60s to play with Bill Russell and chase a championship. It's happened forever in this league. Like all of a sudden it's an issue now because old people don't like young players. And it's like,
I think it's a bigger thing. Sap, sorry to cut you off. Just about the old players, I think nobody gets super frustrated with. I think the situation in Brooklyn is what pisses people off, and what happened in Golden State a couple years ago, where these guys are all in the prime of their careers joining.
I know, but Durant and Kyrie Irving were free agents, and they decided to play together in Brooklyn. Like I have no problem with that. Like the way Kyrie left here wasn't cool because he obviously set the place on fire and gave up midway through the season. That's not professional. I mean, Durant was obviously hurt playing in the finals. We can't hold that against him. In fact, if it had been any other player but Kevin Durant or LeBron James, there may be some questions of, we're going to offer this guy a huge contract because he's, just blew out his Achilles. So I don't have a problem with that. James Harden eating his way out of Houston. I get it. That's a bad look. But when guys are free agents, they're free to go wherever they want. And then the old guys, like I said, that's been happening in the league since as long as I can remember. So I don't really have a major problem with that. But but it's just, look, I love Shaq and I love Charles. I mean, the TNT show is by far the best show on TV as far as pregame, halftime, postgame, whatever you want to talk about. But sometimes, they forget that we do have the internet and we can kind of Google some information on what they did in their careers and see that they went to stack teams. Nothing wrong with it, but don't call out everybody today. Shaq and Charles and some of these old guys, even Dr. J a couple months ago went down this road. They sound like the classic, get off my lawn guys. And I find it kind of funny because as we get older, we get much more irascible. I get that.
Yeah. Again,
another big word, Jet. Irascible.
Yeah, we've been using a lot of good words recently.
Wow.
If you're
6 years of Latin.
If you're studying for the SATs, this is a very good show to listen to.
This is the podcast.
Yeah, I think this is the one. We give you basketball, we give you some movie stuff, we give you SAT words.
Everything. We're really, Da Vinci.
Yeah, it's very, very helpful to all those kids out there, trying to get into colleges.
Tell your parents to listen to us.
How did you do on your SAT, Sap?
Better in math than English.
That shocks me.
Well, you see when I write my columns, you don't realize what the process is for me. I take forever to write a column. I'm not a speed writer.
Well,
Like I
you're
work for
writing on your phone, so that's,
well, I'm
part of
writing on
it.
my phone and I'm half blind, so there's 2 strikes against me. But there's a process. The first column I ever wrote for the Herald was LeBron James is greater than Larry Bird. That really sat well in the
Yeah,
newsroom when
the
I
troll
walked in the day
column.
it was
Yep.
running. Yeah, it was no, it's not a troll column. It's truer now than it was in
You
2014.
did
The
write it
thing,
as a troll.
no, I wrote it as
I
fact,
know
but
you
yeah,
believed it, but you wrote it in the Boston Herald, so it was part of
I
a
wrote it in the
troll.
Boston Herald, and it was the night that LeBron was playing at the Garden um, with the Cavaliers. It was early in the season, so I said, "Let's run." I didn't say it. I pointed out to the editors. I go, "This would be a pretty cool column to run in the Herald the day the Cavaliers are playing at the Celtics." Maybe LeBron read it, and maybe he should follow me on Twitter.
Maybe.
Um, but when I walked in the newsroom, like every old white guy just wanted to bite my head off, and I just like laughed and said, "Come on, guys, you can't be serious. Of course he's better than Larry Bird. This was 7 years ago, and I've had discussions with people recently that say, "Oh no, Bird was better." I'm like, "No, he wasn't. I mean, I watched both of these guys play. One is the greatest player ever, and one is the 7th greatest player ever. There's a difference there. And Bird was awesome, but I don't know why I'm going there, but because why not? But what were we talking about? Now,
How
now I
you
sound
did
like
on
the
your
old guy.
SATs.
Oh my, yeah. See what I mean? This is why I didn't do as good on my SATs as I should
Trey
have,
Law.
because it was in 1981. I lost concentration. I was probably at that point arguing with the administrator of the SATs that Marcus Johnson was better than Larry Bird. I just
Yeah,
had this
yeah.
thing, and maybe that impacted me. But when I do a column, it takes forever. It's like I have to go through this long process. I have a really good math mind. Like I think you've realized that after working with me for nearly a decade. Like numbers, I really work quickly through my mind. So I'm better at math
Like
than English. I get the
like
feeling you were
John
the other way
Nash.
around. At times I can be John Nash. Yes, a
Yeah.
beautiful mind.
Well, I think that I did not do well on the math portion of my SATs. I did excellent on the
Yeah,
reading
I could see
comprehension
that.
portion.
That's why we get along. That's why we get along great. I'm the analytical math guy, and you're the romantic.
Yes, there you go. And so I romanticize, players doing this organic thing where the team gets incrementally better and then they win a championship like Giannis just did, and that's why I love that Bucks title so much. And I demonize when guys, conspire to go to super teams and, then eat their way out of Houston. And oh God, I just really hate that Nets team so much. But yeah, I mean, listen, I agree with Shaq. Do I think he's the best spokesperson for this? No, but ultimately, I agree with him, and I appreciate him speaking up because not nearly enough people criticize these super teams. You barely hear it. You barely hear it. Most people just love it on social media. It's very popular.
Right. Oh yeah, no. It's the old guys speaking up that this is not cool. But no, Shaq and Charles Barkley, whatever they say is must listen to or must read because they're fantastic at what they do. I wonder what TNT is going to do with their hockey pregame and in between period show. They got Wayne Gretzky, who I don't think exactly is going to be Shaq or Charles Barkley. He's going to be the lead guy. Rick Tockett's going to be
You should
on there,
just throw
and
Barkley on there. Just go for it. See what
that's what
happens.
I said. Yeah, let Barkley talk about hockey. He doesn't watch the games anyway. He does the NCAA tournament. He had no clue what he's talking about, but it's
No
still so
clue.
damn entertaining. I mean, he's the perfect guy. Like he would be a great radio talk show host. He doesn't need to do prep. In fact, if he started doing prep, he wouldn't be as good because that's not
Total,
really who he is.
100% true.
Yeah, just wind them up. Just wind them
Yep.
up and let him go.
I think it would be, yeah. I'd like to see him on the hockey coverage. All right, Sap. Let's talk about your guy, the guy you think is the greatest player ever. I don't share that opinion, but LeBron James, he loves social media. He has a positive relationship with it, unlike Kevin Durant, who has a very negative relationship with social media. LeBron tweeted out the following: "Why do so many ball players work on stuff they are never going to use in the game? Serious question. Annoys me a tad." And then the thinking emoji with the finger and the thumb and the finger on the face, on the chin. What's he getting at here, Sap? Let's you put on your LeBron translator cap.
Okay, here's the thing. First, I'm thinking, is he trolling Ben Simmons? Because we saw the video of Ben Simmons hitting three
They're
pointers, and
friends.
they are friends. I don't think he would criticize Ben Simmons. I think he would like to play with Ben Simmons at some point in his career. And he's also a clutch client. Then LeBron is a smart guy. He's not going to damage a clutch client So I don't think it was that him trolling Ben Simmons, who's working on his 3-point shot and has taken 26 3-pointers in 4 seasons in the NBA. I think he's looking.
Yeah.
Is
I
it
mean,
that
no.
many? Yeah, like 26 3-pointers in 4 years. I mean, like I took that
That
many at the
number would
park the other
surprise
day.
me if it was that high.
Yeah, and he's hit 5 of them. He's hit 5 of 26 from
That's good.
3-point territory in his entire career. Like Steph Curry could take 26 in a game if he wants, and I'd be all for it. My only pushback on this, I'm not sure where LeBron's going with this, is again, like Shaq and like Charles Barkley, I think LeBron should look in the mirror a little bit. My problem, and look, the one thing about me, I will criticize LeBron, I will criticize Aaron Rodgers. I'm not, fanboy that's just gonna. I'll analyze these guys because they're both guys that are fascinating to analyze because I think they're both really smart and there's reasons they do things. An Achilles of LeBron's game has been his free throw shooting, right? He's a 72% free throw shooter. Like the only other guys in that vein are like the centers, like obviously Shaq and Bill Russell, were in the 50s, and Will Chamberlain was in the 50s. Like he's not that bad. But most of those great players, whether it be, Bird, Magic, Jordan, name them all, Kobe, they're all like 80, 85%. I mean,
Right.
Magic Johnson was an 85% free throw shooter. He had the ugliest looking shot ever, but he would make 85% of his free throws. Now, I agree with Nick Wright. You name me the championship that's been lost because of free throw shooting. Like if Bill Russell was a better free throw shooter, would he won 13 championships instead of 11? So you can't really say, okay, they lost this title because of free throw shooting. You could go to the Spurs in 2013. They missed some free throws late in game 6, which cost them. They could have put that game away. So, but that's not LeBron. He actually won that game. But he should be a better free throw shooter. Like and I see LeBron oftentimes, posting videos of him working out. Brady does the same thing. It's great. They're branding, whatever. They're the 2 biggest athletes in the country. They're both playing at a high level at an advanced age. Great. As some people get turned off by that, it's like they're just showing you what they do, the process, how they get to where they are at this advanced stage. I want to see LeBron taking 500 free throws a day. Maybe he is. If he is, I'm pretty sure, though, that he would post that, right? I want to see him shoot better from the free throw line. It's not just shooting better from the free throw line. If he shoots better from the free throw line, he's going to be more ready, willing, and able to go to the basket where he's unstoppable. I think at times he doesn't want to drive to the basket for fear of getting fouled and going to the free throw line. I think it's in his head. I think that's one thing that he can work on to get better. And again, it goes back to my point with LeBron James. I think he's at times over analytical. Like we criticize Peyton Manning for being that way. I criticize Aaron Rodgers for being that way. Over analytical paralysis through over analysis. That happens with LeBron James. I'd like to see him improve his free throw shooting. I don't know if he was watching something and saw a player doing, crazy shots that you're not going to take during a game and say, why is a player doing that? Like we see Steph Curry before the game shooting from the tunnel, literally hitting threes. Like you're not going to take that shot in the game. But I don't know. I can't criticize Steph Curry. The guy's a 44% 3-point shooter. I mean, so that's just entertainment. And look, in the end, this is all entertainment. I find that great. So I don't know what his method to his madness is. I don't think he tweets these things out just without thinking about it. There's a method to this madness.
Yeah, I know. He's not that type of person who just throws something out there for no reason. There's definitely a reason why he tweeted this, or he's reacting to something very specific. I will say, to counter the Nick Wright thing, who I can't stand because he hates the Celtics. I would say that the poor free throw shooting means that you don't even get to the championship round. I thought you and I both thought the 76ers last year were fully capable of winning a championship based on the talent they had, but the free throw shooting ended up, specifically from Ben Simmons, eliminating them basically. So they weren't even able to get there. But I mean, the Bucks won the title. The Sixers roster was, in my opinion, just as good as the Bucks. Or damn close to it. They certainly
I thought it was better. I thought they would have beat them in a 7-game series, but they couldn't in free throws against
Atlanta. They certainly could have beaten the Suns in the finals, and they didn't get there because of poor free throw shooting. So I'd say it happens. But you typically, if you're a poor free throw shooting team, typically you don't even get to the finals. So I would counter Nick Wright's argument with that. In addition to the SAP with this LeBron thing, I agree with you. Sort of there is a look in the mirror mentality, but also I think that it is true. I do think a lot of players practice things that they never use in a game, or do things that they're really good at and then they don't use them in the game, it's frustrating. Like, okay, I'll use a Celtics example. Marcus Smart, uh, I think he's great on the block. I see him
Yep,
practice
I
it
agree with
and
that.
shoot around,
Yep.
and then I don't see him do it in the game nearly enough. That's frustrating. Just from a Celtics perspective, I think there's a lot of players like that who maybe it's not are practicing things that they don't use in a game, but are not putting together their best skills that they could use in a game. Like Joel Embiid, another guy, he's an adept 3-point shooter. There's no reason for him to be on the perimeter really ever because he's dominant down low.
Right.
So
Yeah.
why is he practicing threes when really he should just stick to what he's the best at, which is he's the best post player in the NBA. Just do that. So
Well, we
if
could look
he's
at Jason Tatum too, right? Because Jason Tatum loves the step back jumper,
yeah,
and he's really good at it. I'd like to see Jason Tatum attack the basket more
yeah,
because I think
totally.
he's 6'10". He's long. He's apparently put 10 pounds of muscle on. He looks like the Incredible Hulk. Like maybe he's building up for that to go to the basket more. And he's also a 80+% free throw shooter. So it's not like he's going to get fouled, go to the line, and not hit his free throws. So you want to see more of that. The problem is that wanting guys to just spend the entire game in the low block, that's a lot of work, and you get beat up, right? So
Yeah,
and the game has changed at some point. Like Kareem played in the low post because that's what you did as a big guy. But Kareem could also float out a little bit. His distance on his hook shot, he could hit 15 to 17-foot hook shots, which sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Um, where Moses Malone was just get in the block and just overpower people. We saw Shaq do that. That's a lot of, getting beat up. It's almost like a running back in football. I mean, it looks great. Let's give Derrick Henry 30 carries a game. Well, how long is his career going to last? So
right.
I get you on that, but I'm trying to think, is LeBron looking at one particular player, or is he just sounding like an old guy now who's, the senior member of the league who's saying, these young kids, they don't work on the right stuff?
Is he looking at one of his teammates in Russell Westbrook and saying, "Why are you shooting threes? I don't want you to ever do that in the game"?
Could be. That would make sense. That would make sense because I don't want to see Russell Westbrook taking threes. I
The
don't. I mean, I don't
Lakers
want.
would be best suited if he takes 0 threes this year, Russell Westbrook.
Right.
0.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's a 22% 3-point shooter. That is god awful. 22% or just above that. I mean, he's horrible. And there are times when he takes a 3-pointer, it's an air ball or it's off the side of the backboard. It's like they don't even come close. Yeah, maybe it's a message, but do you think he's going to be that passive aggressive with Westbrook? I'm fascinated to
Yes.
see how that works. Yeah, I mean, he's look, I don't know who's the most passive aggressive athlete in America. It's basically my two guys. I've kind
Yep.
of cornered the market on that. Rogers is kind of getting rid of a
Oh, he's
filter
very
lately.
passive aggressive.
He is very passive aggressive, though. Durant, Rogers, LeBron. Those are the three guys that tend to be very passive aggressive, and I think Rogers and Durant more than LeBron even have rabbit ears because Rogers will admit to it and like talk about it. With LeBron's, I think he handles it better. He compartmentalizes it better than those other two. But yeah, maybe it is for Russell Westbrook, and you hope he doesn't take threes because they got enough 3-point shooters on that team. Westbrook has to. That is just going to be a fascinating watch. I don't know what the hell's going to happen. This could be fabulously great or just god awful. I mean, it could be a situation where 3 months into this, you're like, just get rid of the guy. He's just not going to fit
Right.
in.
Yeah.
It could
And
happen. I don't know.
it could, and his contract is such that you can't just get rid of him. No one's gonna take it on if he
Yeah.
struggles. So we'll see. I mean, few players have struggled with LeBron, as their teammate. So the track record is encouraging if you're a Lakers
Right.
fan or a Russell Westbrook fan. So we'll see. Sap, the last thing I want to talk about is another thing that was on social media from my favorite player and yours, Kyrie Irving. I don't know if you saw this. This was about 5-6 days ago. He
I remember this. Yep.
tweeted, "My mask is off. Now take yours off. No fear." Okay, people, I got all up in arms and said, Kyrie, I tweeted out Kyrie remaining the worst, which I fully agree with and support. And then, there's a lot of people back and forth on the social media, saying, defending him, saying this, saying that. And then he comes out and says the following, Sap. I'll read it to you off of his Twitter. So there's no debate about what he said. He said, quote, "Mask off means You stop being something you're not and stop lying to yourself. It's the moment you discover the real you and can walk around with no fear, in all caps, in a society that shows a lot of the masks people wear to hide who they truly are. Nothing COVID related. Relax. Okay. First of all, that's word vomit. Like, it's always word vomit with Kyrie. What he just said means nothing. And second of all, this is why it pissed me off, Sap. I don't know what pissed me off more, the initial tweet or the second tweet, because you could say it's not COVID related. What's the biggest debate in this country right now? Vaccines and masks.
Absolutely,
Maybe
yeah.
in the world. So you cannot tell me he's throwing that out there right now. Take my mask off, you take yours off, and it has nothing to do with COVID. Kyrie, as dumb as I think he is sometimes, I don't think he's a dumb person. He's aware of what's going on around him. You cannot tell me, and maybe you disagree with me, Sap, but to me, you cannot tell me he tweeted this out there and was like, oh, no, this has nothing to do with COVID. Why are people bringing this up? I was just saying this about masks as a society. To me, that's just total bullshit. Total and complete bullshit.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff, because I mean, unless he's referencing, Phantom of the Opera or whatever, then this isn't the time to talk in that vein. Like, you have to realize what people are going to say, how people are going to react. Self-awareness is not Kyrie Irving's strength. In fact, it's probably his biggest weakness. Like, I just don't think he cares or gets that what he is saying may be misconstrued or taken a certain way. I also think he's smart enough to understand that. But again, I think there's times where I think oftentimes he's just a troll. He's just a contrarian.
Yeah, I
Right? Like,
agree, but this isn't the time to do that.
no,
Like, it's
but
okay.
that's
The
the time,
flat Earth
right?
stuff is stupid, and then maybe he's
Right.
trolling on that. I don't know. I don't know the guy. I think that's dangerous a little bit in itself, but that's more stupid because the 99% of people in the world, I do believe, know the world is round and not flat.
Mhm.
This is a serious health issue in the world, the mask debate,
Right.
and he's throwing this out there and then saying, "Oh, no, I wasn't talking about that." I mean, maybe you weren't, but you know what you were doing. Is this the time to tweet that? I mean, that's why it frustrates me. He's denying that it had anything to do with COVID, but the timing has everything to do with COVID.
Of course it does. Yeah. Yeah. It's the biggest debate in the country. It really is. I mean, should you be vaccinated and should you wear a mask? And it's so politicized. And he's a little bit like Kurt Schilling, isn't he? Where he again thinks he's smarter than he is, and he has to have an opinion on everything, and he likes to be a contrarian, and then he pushes the envelope, and then when it goes too far, he'll cry foul. Like he said in that follow-up tweet, just relax, everybody. Like, I'm not going there. It's similar to what Schilling did when he, tweeted out a journalist being hung, right? And
Right.
questions why he doesn't get into the Hall of Fame. I mean, if you're pissing off a body that votes you in or out of the Hall of Fame, why would you have a noose to, show what you think journalists should have happened to them? So yeah, I mean, they're very similar in that sense. He's got a little Donald Trump in him too. Like, yeah, I just think he likes to just be different and likes to have these ridiculous fights with people for no apparent reason. And this is him. I mean, look, marvelous basketball player. My Lord, I've said it a million times. If I could have anybody's skill set and show up at the playground, it would be Kyrie Irving. 6'2" with all that talent and just to make the game look so easy. It's almost laughable. But man, there's a lot going on or not going on between his ears because he does tend to shoot himself in the foot quite often with tweets and reactions to those tweets.
Yeah, I mean, I think he kind of likes it. I
Oh
think
God,
this
yeah.
is
Oh
this
yeah.
is observing what's going around the country or whatever, lobbing a grenade and then saying, "Oh, I didn't realize that people would notice that there was an explosion. I didn't,
Right.
that had nothing to do with it. I was just for myself wanted to see, if how far I could throw the grenade. It had nothing to do with causing damage or anything like that. So, that's a little bit of a weird analogy, but again, my mask off, now take yours off, no fear, and then say, "Oh,
It,
that had nothing to do with COVID." Like, come on,
isn't
come
he
on.
Mama Soprano as well? Like kind of like Mama Soprano. It's like me. I didn't say that or mean that. As she's causing the family to have a massive fight. There's always someone in the family that's perfect at that, right? That gets like a brother fighting against another brother or a cousin fighting a cousin or mother father, whatever. There's always that one person in the family that like gets off on that. That's Kyrie Irving, right? Like he must just wake up in the morning and, wring his hands and say, okay, how can I be,
Totally.
this irascible guy today? He's like Mama Soprano.
But then, I get the one thing of like trying to, get a rise out of people and stuff like that. I think this is not the right time or place to do it.
No,
But
this isn't the
okay.
thing, right?
But also, what I really hate is the feigning ignorance afterwards. That makes it just so much worse to
Right.
me. That's like doubling
Yep.
down and being like, because okay, on one hand, you're saying I'm, a really smart guy, smartest guy in the room, smartest guy in the NBA. I'm a deep thinker, and then saying, how? Oh my God, I didn't realize you guys thought this
Yeah.
would be about COVID. Well, that was
Right.
not my like. Come on. Come on. You can't have it both ways. Like you can't pretend you're the smartest person in the room and then say, "Oh, why are you taking it this way?"
Right,
Clearly, it
exactly.
has
Yeah,
nothing
you,
to do
you
with
can't
it.
plead ignorance at that point. It's kind of like, I'm much more ready, willing, and able to criticize the Patriots. You're a Patriots fan. I'm not, but they no, they've always talked about as being the best organization. Belichick knows like how many paper clips are in the box in the storage room, but he didn't know about footballs being deflated or things being videotaped or what exactly Ernie Adams does. Like you can't be the smartest guy and then plead ignorance. And oftentimes people do that. And look, he's a strange dude. And again, I like the fact that he's there because for what we do, he gives us great content, doesn't he? I mean, there's always something that Kyrie Irving's doing or saying that we have to analyze. I mean, Sigmund Freud would have had a blast dealing with Kyrie Irving. He probably would have wrote a couple of books trying to figure out what the hell he's doing.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think that there's some elements of Kyrie Irving that are like the Joker in Batman. Some people just want
Exactly.
to see the world burn, and there's no real
Yep.
logic behind it besides that. I do think that there's some of that, but again, the first thing, this is just not the time or place to be lobbing those sorts of
Right.
grenades and thoughts.
Yeah.
It's not helpful to anybody, especially he's looked up to in the Black community a lot.
Hmm.
And, there's a huge debate amongst vaccines and masks in that community too. They're under vaccinated because they're rightfully so fearful of the government stuff, but he's not helping anything with this.
No.
And then the feign ignorance makes it worse. So I wanted to talk about that. I know that wasn't on our initial show sheet, Sap. I just wanted to get your thoughts
That's
on it,
okay.
just because it was something that rankled me. Though to be fair, he could tweet out "the sky is blue" and that would rankle me with him at this point too. So
Absolutely.
I'll be honest about it. But this in particular really pissed me off. But
You
again,
got your goat.
nothing he can do now that's not going to piss me off.
No.
So that's the situation we're in. But that's going to do it for us here, Sap, at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. We are, as always, presented by Full Press Coverage. Check out their website for tons of great articles and other podcasts. And make sure you find our podcast wherever podcasts are found. Just type in the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. And you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/JetStrider if you're not watching there already. Check out our social medias. Sap likes to run lots of cool polls and stuff and post show updates there at JohnSap25. Those are the numbers 2 and 5. And mine is at JetStrider. So check out our socials as well. And we will talk to you later. See you, everybody.